This is the Shā Sparks Show, where business and military leaders share what it means to invest in leadership, relationships, and self-love. And stay tuned for the end of the interview. There is a new coaching segment that you won't want to miss. What do you do after you have been through a horrible breakup? Do you talk bad about them? Do you forgive them? Do you beat something up? Or do something really profound and fascinating that is going to knock the socks off the world? Well, I have a treat for you today. Our guest is going to share what he did after his breakup. Welcome back to the Shā Sparks Show, where we talk to business and military leaders about what it means to invest in leadership, relationships, self-love, and most importantly, people. This is season 10. I cannot believe how fast it's gone by. And after 5 years, this is still one of my favorite things that I get to do. I am your host, Shā Sparks, Chief Excitement Officer of Sparks of Fire International, where we get you fired up about your life and business through finding your voice, through coaching, podcast, and publications. And today, my guest is the amazing Shervin Boz. Welcome to the show, Shervin.
Well, thank you. And if I may say, congratulations. Season number 10. That's amazing. Hats off to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's funny because it's a season because I called it a season. Some people are like, they do it, 52 weeks a year. And I was like, yeah, I don't have it in me to do it that much. But I am so thankful and blessed that I have the audience I have that stick with me and come back for the next season. So
absolutely. And it's 10 more seasons than me or anyone else. So congratulations. And thank you for having me on. I'm really, really excited to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. And I was so honored to be on your show. And I think we met in a Facebook group. we were trying to figure that out. And so we're just going to go with that. That's the story we're telling people. And so I was honored to be on your show. And thank you for being here. And this is your first interview.
It is. Yeah.
Yay. How's it feel to be in the hot seat?
It's different. I'm a little nervous. I'm not gonna lie. Now I can understand how guests feel when they're on. I'm like, I got nothing to be nervous about, but in a way I kind of do. So
yeah, well, you don't. I mean, I'll take it super easy on you. And if anything, we're just gonna have a great time. So
love it.
Good. So for those of you who don't know, Shervin is the host of Hidden Innuendos Podcast. It is a podcast that talks about heartbreak, dating, and love. And he also talks about the real challenges and concerns in the dating world. You can find out more at hiddeninnuendos.com. Well, Shervin, I love this topic, and I can't wait to dive in. So the first question I like to start with is, what does investing in relationships mean to you?
It means everything. It means literally putting your heart out and giving it to that person and let them know that this is yours forever. So be delicate with it, love it, appreciate it, be compassionate with it. And most of all, when it fails, don't abandon it. Because I feel like a lot of people, once they encounter failure or some type of turmoil in a relationship, they just think it's game over, when that should never be necessarily the case. It should be a way of making it heal, making it work. And when you help that other person, it becomes a true relationship, a full circle.
I love that you said that, a full circle relationship. I don't know about your experience, and maybe we'll find out here in a minute, but I know myself, I've had very much one-sided relationships.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes we don't even consider that when we're dating, but even in family dynamics and even at work, a lot of times a leader will be, or a teammate will be, a one-sided relationship, and there's not an energy exchange, right? So there's so much more than just the relationships in a romantic way.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, relationships should never be one way. That should never be the case.
So have you experienced something that wasn't a full circle relationship?
Yeah, about 2.5 years ago with my ex-girlfriend. The things were, what you see in front of you is what you get. Mm-hmm. However, there was certain things behind the curtain that she did not want to disclose. And unfortunately, that's where we came to the end result of us breaking up, which I don't put a lot of blame into her, but I put a majority of the blame with her, and I would say some of it is mine. But I think that if you are going to invest in a relationship, you both have to understand that we need to disclose everything. As I said before, you got to literally put your heart out and give it to that person and say, I'm not going to hide anything from you. I'm not going to distrust you. I'm not going to leave you abandoned. You just have to understand and give me the faith and give me the opportunity to prove you right, to let you know that I still love you and I'll always love you. And I think that, like I said, a lot of relationships, they fail because they don't want to see turmoil. And I say that because, like I said, someone loses a job, someone has to move, or someone doesn't make enough money, it becomes someone else's burden. And I feel like that should never be the case. It's our burden. And when you do it together, you accomplish something that a lot of people wish they had, and a lot of things that people wish they hadn't had because they've never been in that type of situation because they don't want to be in that situation, which I think it doesn't really make a relationship what it's supposed to be. So I think those types of relationships are half circle. But when I say full circle, that means that you can look that person in the eye and they can just tell you, I got you. We will work on this together. At the end of the day, it's you and I. It's not just me. It's not just you. It's you and I. And whatever the problem is, we'll face it together. So
I love that.
That's full circle. I love it. I should change my podcast name to Full Circle.
Right. I love it. Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm so glad that you brought this whole topic up. So I'm just curious if you don't mind sharing, or maybe you don't even know, what was the things that she didn't disclose, and how long were you guys together?
Well, we were together for about 2.5 years, and the breakup was by far the hardest thing I've ever encountered in my whole entire life. I didn't see it coming. And I know, like I said, there were problems that we've had, but unfortunately I didn't see it that way because I was so in love with this person. And I feel like this goes out to everyone, is that when you're in love, everything else just doesn't matter. Everything else is secondary, because you would literally do anything for that person. You put this person on a pedestal and sacrifice everything possible. But I didn't see any red flags until the end, until the actual night of the breakup. And yeah, that was by far one of the most awful nights of my life.
Yeah. And you said there was something she was disclosing. So was it she had children you didn't know about, or
Right.
or another life? Because that happens, right? They have a whole nother family.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
No, that wasn't the case, and I'd be shocked if it were. But what she had told me has literally resonated in my mind forever, was that the fact that she was being mean to me for 3 months, that way I can find a way to break up with her. That kind of hurt, because I don't picture myself as an evil person. I'm a nice guy. I'm a great guy, very faithful. But the fact that anyone would do something like that, someone that you loved, right? And you happened to play this game for 3 months and not only put myself, but also my kids emotionally at jeopardy. That's a scary thought, because you start to really disbelieve not only that person, but then you start to disbelieve yourself and ask yourself, maybe I wasn't the best person that I was supposed to be. Maybe I'm not a good boyfriend. Maybe my kids are horrible. You start to second guess, you start to ask these questions, and that's when you start to beat yourself up. And I'll be honest with you, that's what happened to me. I started to beat myself to a pulp with it's all my fault, and that, not to get all about me, but
well, it is all about you. So
feel free. It's kind of weird. I'm sorry if I'm rambling on.
It's all good. No, you're not rambling at all. Continue.
Because I'm so used to being in your spot.
I know.
Where was I? Yeah, the fact about that night. It was a hard night, and I'll be honest with you that when I found out that she didn't love me, I really wanted to end my life.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry you wanted to end your life, but wait a minute for a second.
Sure.
So not just was she had been mean to you for the last 3 months, hoping that you would break up with her, you're now saying she didn't love you?
When
or
I
that
asked,
she said she didn't love you?
You can never really tell, right? You can never tell. Some people you can, without any question, right? I love my kids. There's no question about that.
Right.
But when you say I love you to someone, it can really be resonated in a whole different way, in a million different ways, right? The way that she told me she loved me was not the way that it should be felt by anyone to say to anyone else, this girl loves me. There was some type of energy there was subtype, this may sound funny, disturbance in the force, that she was not genuinely in love with me. And I had to ask her that question on New Year's Eve of 2021 after we had sex. I had to ask her, do you still love me? After she faked an orgasm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And her answer was?
That's it. Nothing. Just like this. There was nothing in the air. Not even my dog wanted to even burp or breathe, because for me, the world stood still
Sure.
for those 5 seconds.
It seemed like hours, I'm sure.
It was eternity. Yeah.
Yeah. I am so sorry that you experienced that. And I believe for
Thank
some
you.
reason it happens more than we think. I had a client a year ago. Actually, I talked about a year ago this week on the show, where a client had found out after 25 years of marriage, she never loved him, is what she told him. And she ended up having an affair with the next door neighbor, which turned out to be his best friend, and she was in love with him. But never, she said, I've never been in love with you after 25 years.
So why 25 years? Why
I
not
don't
two and a
know.
half years?
Right. I think, how can I'm that person where I'm like, if I'm not feeling it, it's like I don't want to drag this on. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to waste anyone's time. So I
Yeah.
can't imagine the thought process of wanting to lie about it. And maybe it's not the lying. Maybe it's them thinking, "Oh, it'll get better."
You would think after 22 years,
I
right?
know.
And I'm not laughing at the
No.
outcome of it, but I'm laughing at the whole fact, and this goes with everyone, is that if you want to break up with someone, don't let it linger for God
Right.
knows how long.
Right.
You know,
Ugh, I'm so sorry you
oh
experienced
no, no,
that.
no.
That's
Thank you.
terrible.
You're so sweet.
And yet, so I know that you were saying you went through this deep depression. And
Yeah,
so take us back to that if you don't mind.
sure. Well, I don't want to, but no,
Yeah.
no, I'm just
Well,
kidding.
share with us what
Of
happened.
course.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it was a dark hole. It was literally to the point to where I was picturing those movie scenes where a guy has all the blinds closed. Remember Swingers? Remember the movie Swingers, where Mike literally was in his apartment for 2 weeks with no contact,
Mm,
only drinking orange juice and feeling sorry for himself.
sure.
I was to that point where not only did I feel sorry for myself, but I was questioning myself. As a grown man with two children, you started to really take a look at yourself and say, we fucked up. And I'm sorry, can I cuss? Am I allowed to do that?
You already did.
Okay.
It's all good.
Okay. Is I blamed myself completely. I was like, why? Why couldn't she love me? And I was mad at myself. I mean, there are nights to where I would wake up in a cold sweat thinking that she was having fun with other men,
Mm,
literally like months after our breakup. Like the whole my mind was by far my worst enemy.
mm,
My mind wanted to play games with me because I let my mind do that. And for that, I became super depressed. I became super paranoid. And I thought that, what if I just end my life?
mm,
What if I end my life and just be done with it? But then again, Shay, I have 2 kids. I have 2 young kids. I leave this world, she wins,
right.
right? My kids lose. And I can't let that happen because I truly love my kids. So I'm glad that this all happened. And for all the listeners out there who have gone through heartbreak, I feel for you. I really do. And your story may be a lot worse, maybe a lot easier, but a heartbreak's a heartbreak.
Yeah.
And when you become a heartbreak survivor like I have, the feeling is amazing. But like I said, going out to your listeners, that if you are going through heartbreak, please take the time you need. Take as much time as you need. And if you are feeling like you want to end your life, please go seek some help, because it can get really serious. And Shay and I don't ever want you to be in that abyss, because it's not fun. There's no really reason to put yourself in that situation.
I've been there myself. Mine was way young. I was in, God, I don't know, junior high or something. Silly, but that's literally what I was thinking was, I don't want this pain. I want to just die. I just want to end it. And I know there was pain stacked upon pain of many other scenarios that was happening in my world, but I didn't want this anymore. So our minds think that, like, oh, how can I end this? And I turned to alcohol and, at a teenage years. So, and I appreciate that you're sharing the story because we don't talk about enough how when a relationship ends, how a lot of times one person will go internal and just that
Hmm.
negative inner voice of beating ourselves up is, what did I do wrong? Why wasn't I good enough for them to love me?
Yeah.
So often that's what ends up happening. And then it's like, okay, at some point you realize, okay, it's not about me.
Right.
But that is sometimes takes years for us to get to that point. Now that you are on the other side of it, is there anything that you would suggest that if someone's, kind of in the mix or, a month out or so that really helped you at the end then to go, you know what, I wish I'd have done this sooner.
Yeah. I know it sounds very cliche, but time, you've
Mm,
got to let time just do what it's supposed to do. Let time be your best friend. For me, I use time. I became patient with myself and also music.
mm,
I listen to a ton of music. I'm not like saying like anything that's gonna burst your eardrums. Like I would say like songs, and not to get religious, but there's an album called Songs of Worship
mm-hmm,
that I seriously listened to on repeat. It was just
mm.
like instrumental music
Yeah.
from Chris Tomlin, who's I'm
Yes.
sure if you don't, yes, he's a
Yeah. Love
famous,
him.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. And I listened to his album or that album repeatedly.
mm.
And I don't know why, but that album was destined for me to listen to. So that album helped me tremendously. So I would say time, respect, and definitely some music.
I love that you also said patience. You had patience with yourself. And I think
Yes.
that's another thing that we overlook. We don't give ourselves grace,
Yeah.
right? And we think, oh, we got to hurry up and get this over with. I got to hurry up and stop feeling this way. And it's like, what if you just leaned into that feeling and gave yourself the patience, like you just said? It will go by quicker than what you realize. When we avoid it or be resistant to feeling it or do something else like drinking or drugs or God knows what else,
Yeah.
that's when it keeps coming back and it's still there. The phrase, as I was thinking about this conversation all week, I was thinking about what is the phrase? Something about the best way to get over someone is to get under someone. And I
No.
always hated that
Like under
phrase.
the sheets, or what are we talking
Yeah.
about?
Well, whatever hidden innuendo you
Yeah,
want,
yeah,
right?
right.
And I've always hated that phrase because it's like, okay, but you're just adding more crap to the already crap pile, right?
Right.
Like that's not going to help. In at least in my circumstances, that's what my thought was. And then I watch other people do it, and I'm like, yeah, you just adding more crap to your crap pile. Why did you do that?
Right. What do you think that means though? Like I understand like to get under someone, but it can go a whole lot of ways,
I always took it
right?
as the hidden innuendo, the hidden sexual innuendo, right?
Yeah.
That's how I always took it. I guess you're right. It could be taken other ways.
I don't
What
believe
do you
that to
think
be
it
true.
means?
Yeah. I first off, I don't think you should definitely have sex with anyone months until you are getting somewhat better
Right.
from experience. One, it's not the same. You will literally start crying. And if I can tell you this funny story,
Yeah.
I remember I had this girl who understood my story. I told her because she can tell by the tears. And I remember when we were first having sex, and she was a beautiful, beautiful woman. And we were up in my bedroom. And it literally was we were doing this position and I literally was crying.
Oh,
I was
no.
crying hysterically and
Oh, no.
she could feel the tears because I was literally like right behind her just crying. And it was like one of those weird, like I said, another weird movie scene where you had this guy who's with this beautiful girl and he just gets pathetic.
Oh,
So she's like, "We can stop." And I said, "Thank you. Let's just stop."
just stop. Wow.
So, in regards to the whole phrase of getting under someone, I don't believe that should be the case of sexual encounters.
Right.
And I don't think you should get under anyone except for yourself.
Agreed. Amen.
Amen.
We're just gonna circle like all of it: the cussing, the preaching, the drinking, all of
Right?
it.
I like that. Preaching. Well, you know what? I don't know. Can we call your episode? Can we call this episode like full circle?
Full
Preaching and
circle.
drinking? Yeah.
Course. Well, clearly it is full circle. Everything about it, right?
It is, right?
I've been on the not really the receiving end of that, but I've been in a certain situation where I just was in an abusive relationship before, right? So I was just abused. And then here comes the I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, and trying to make up with me. And I was to the point where it was like, okay, we're just gonna have sex so I can just stop this and stop him.
Yeah.
And I'm crying because I'm so broken. So I get it. There's something about, I can't believe we're talking about this, but there's something about so emotional that shouldn't be happening when you're having sex. That's not the place for it to be.
Yeah.
So the whole getting under someone to get over someone is not a good advice
No.
whatsoever.
Well, I'm really sorry that happened to you. Unfortunately, you went through that, and now you are a rejuvenated Shay. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
And speaking of rejuvenated, Shervin, so you've done something profound with the angst and the hurt and the lessons that you've learned. What did you do with that?
I did something profound. I did something that I love dearly. And I mean that with all my heart, is that, like, you hear from everyone, right? I have a podcast. Oh, I have a podcast. I have a podcast. Everyone's got a podcast, which is great. But I remember I was on a date with this girl. This was maybe a month before I decided to come up with Hidden Innuendos. And she was at the bar. And I was getting a little sobby because we were talking about our past relationships. And of course we had a couple bottles of wine here. And then she told me, you should definitely start a podcast.
Mm,
And I was like,
nice.
okay, let's do it. So here we are, 8 months later. And yes, what happened in the past, it was all necessary for me to be where I'm at right now.
And tell us about your podcast. What do you talk about on there?
The three main pillars, I should say, are heartbreak, dating, and love.
Mm,
And within those three, they don't have to be necessarily sad. I know sometimes when you hear heartbreak, it's a sad moment, but I want to let people know that it can be happy or fun moments or really funny moments, but it doesn't always have to be sad. But it's a nesting platform that for those who are going through a heartbreak, or those who want to talk about the struggles of dating, especially with online dating, and then those who are trying to find and move back into love.
beautiful. So you
Yeah.
took your trauma, quote unquote, and turned it into a treasure.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it's
you
not
have.
my treasure. It's other people's treasure. And I hope that, like I said, this is a nesting platform for those who need to talk about it. Because I wish that I had something like this when I was going through my breakup.
Do you think it would have helped? Do you think it would have like guided you into a direction to know that you're not alone?
Absolutely. And just like you
Beautiful.
said, the fact is you're not alone. When you tell other people that, it gives people faith that they can persevere through this. They just don't know when that's going to happen, and that's part of it, right? Because it's the big question that can't be answered yet. And for those like me who were just asking, is today going to be the day that I don't think about her? You can't
Mm,
ask that question.
right.
It's not
No.
it's not up to you.
Right.
You've got to let nature take its course. Time, like I said, time is your best friend. Let time be your best friend and do the job that's supposed to do. And I say this in a couple of my episodes, that when you wake up one day in the morning and you look at yourself in the mirror and you've smiled at each other, you've known, you know that you did it.
Mm,
You know right then and there you did it. You've overcame that giant obstacle.
yeah.
And it's a fucking big obstacle. And I'm sorry to curse, but it's a huge obstacle. As a grown man in his 40s, to tell you that, it is.
Well, I love that you just mentioned about when you don't think about them for that day. There was, well, several people that I've been in relationships with, and I remember after the breakup, like every day, it's like, oh God, why are they the first thing that comes to mind? Like, why? And then time goes by, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, time is the best way to heal. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, wait. God, how long's it been since I thought about them? Yes. Out of
Right?
the blue, their name will pop in my awareness. And I'm like, oh, it's been a long time since I thought about them. Thank God. And it's just that piece that you just explained, and you're finally over a hurdle.
Yeah. Do you ever listen to like an old song that you and your past boyfriend or husband listened to?
Yeah.
Have you and when you listen to it, like how do you feel?
So funny. I don't know, not funny. I have this amazing ability to compartmentalize things that women mostly don't do. Most of the time men do, but I as a woman, I can do that. And yet, what's been so profound for me as my own healing is that my journey that I went through with everyone I've dated, actually, I don't know what I've done energetically to remove this, but it's almost as if it was a movie I watched once.
Hmm.
So the emotions that were attached to those people, the ties have been severed.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
When I listen to certain songs, I listen to them now without thinking of her. I'm thinking of the next girl.
Oh, nice. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for
So
you. So I know that there's a fun saying that you like to say on your show. Time to soothe, groove, move to what?
those hidden innuendos.
Nice. So where'd that come from?
Like what was it back in my late 20s? I remember there's still a show actually, and he's still there. His name is Raul Campos, and he's on a local station in Los Angeles called KCRW. And he had a show, or still sorry, he still has a show called Nocturna.
Okay.
And he would just be playing like this, melodic background ambient house music, which I put on my episodes. And then I remember like I was in the car driving from LA to OC, and I'd said one day I'm going to just do either a DJ host or something
Nice.
where people can hear me say it's time to soothe, groove, and move those hidden innuendos. And then here we are 9 months later, Hidden Innuendos Podcast. So
Nice.
it's crazy. It's nuts how the mind still remembers certain things and they can adapt to what you're currently doing and
Yeah.
say, this is what we should place with this piece right now. So maybe God had that reason for me to plant that name and that saying, soothe, groove, and move.
How many years was that apart?
The like the saying,
Yeah.
I was probably saying it for a good 19 years.
Nice.
Yeah, kept saying it over and
Nice.
over again. So it's funny now because my kids make fun of me for saying that, and then my brother. But
Love it.
it catches on. I guess when
Sure.
they make fun of it, they think it's a form of flattery. So I'll take that.
There you go. There you go. Well, it's like commercials back in the day when they used to have songs and you sing them. It's like, oh, well, clearly it sticks. And now I'm at the store and I'm going to go buy that product. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
So yeah,
Sort of similar. So, back in the day when I was a kid, there are two things that happened WKRP in Cincinnati. Do you remember that
yeah.
show?
Oh, of
Oh,
course,
yeah.
a
Right.
great show.
Like that. I would always sing those theme songs like
I'm
WKRP.
in
Right.
Cincinnati.
But I grew up in the Midwest, so we would have snow days, and they didn't have them at the bottom of the TV at the time. They would only have them on the radio, and we would be listening to talk radio, and then they would have the snow day cancellations. And I don't know, between the ages of 5 and 10, and I was at my grandma's house, and my grandma doesn't have toys for me to play with. I have two older brothers, so they didn't really have girl toys. So she gave me a tape recorder and a microphone. And I am pushing record and play because that's how old I am at the same time with the microphone. And I'm like, and I'm pretending I'm on WKRP in Cincinnati and hitting recording and then saying, Caller, you're on the air. What is your problem? And then I'd go
So
and
cute.
pretend that I was the problem, like whatever the problem was. And then I'd come back and answer it. I'm like, well, like, Dear Abby, I'm going to answer this. And yeah, do you remember Dear Abby was a newspaper column,
I
like
do remember
an
that.
advice column?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We're not that old.
And yeah, yeah. And so it's funny that now that not only here I am as a podcaster doing something similar to it, I am a coach where I'm literally answering people's questions. I know it's so
It's
funny, but you never
full
know.
circle.
Full circle. Yeah. Yeah, we're just gonna have to, that's what the name of this episode will have to be, I guess, full circle. I love
Yeah,
it.
I love that. By the way, WKRP, that was an amazing song. It was so catchy.
Right?
It was.
So this is a perfect time to take a quick break.
Sure.
Because as you can tell, Shervin and I could talk for hours about
We can.
everything and nothing all at the same time. So I want to give a shout out to the sponsors. So I'll take a moment to share the incredible teams that I've partnered with. Heroes Media Group, who produces this show. So thank you for all the amazing things that you do, all the back end stuff. And I want to share with you about an amazing and wonderful energy tablet that it's like an energy chew. And it's called Sisu Stamina. It is at ULA Universe. And if you go to their website, ulauniverse.com, and when you check out, use the code SPARKS10, you will save 10% on your checkout. And I also want to mention Firestarter's book project. It is connecting and collaborating with other creative thought leaders inside a book. And we are looking for creative thought leaders for co-authors. So if you are interested in being a co-author and sharing your story, but you've been overwhelmed about writing a whole book, but yet you know that there is a book waiting to be released from you, then look at firestartersbookproject.com to know more information and connect with them and join the movement today, because we're doing some fantastic things with the Firestarters Book Project. And we'll head back to Shervin and all the amazing things that he is doing. And so we talked a little bit about what you would do now on the other side of the breakup. Is there advice that you would have for someone who's maybe in the situation that you were, that was like, okay, there's some conflict here, and I didn't see that she's been trying to break up with me for 3 months and trying to make me mad? Is there someone that might be in the audience that's like, wow, I think I'm going through that? Is there something now that you're on the other side of it that you would go, hey, maybe you need to ask this question?
Yeah, like ask the question to yourself or ask the question to
Either
the
one.
person, either one.
Either one.
Yeah, I would probably not even ask that question to yourself. I wouldn't even bother trying to communicate with that person anymore. I actually would heavily advise to delete every type of contact you have. I know that it may sound fresh to you because it may have just happened a week or a day ago, but it's for the best. It really is. Because if you keep those contacts, if you keep those pictures, you're not moving on. You're going backwards. And I know people say, well, it's good to have those for memories. That's what the mind's for. The mind will store those memories. They're not going away. As much as you like to erase them, those memories will be implanted in your head forever. So I recommend that you take the steps, zero contact, slowly start to take and remove the things that you two shared together, right? And that's not going to be easy. That's not like whatever I'm saying is not going to be like in an hour, right? The 5 steps to make this better is that's not going to happen. You just have to just be patient and slowly take baby steps. And then in a month, a year or so, you will start to see progression. So I recommend that you just start to appreciate yourself, coming to agreements with yourself saying, we're going to do this together. But like I said, cannot communicate with that person. Ask yourself those questions. Look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself those questions. See if you can answer it truthfully. And if you feel like you can't, maybe you should seek a friend or a family member, or maybe try and see some professional help. I actually went to go see a therapist for 6 sessions. It was good. It wasn't the best for me. And I don't know, maybe I'm just being a stubborn asshole. I don't know. I felt like for me, I said, you know what? This is my journey, right? My brother, my friends, my family, my therapist, they're there. They're on the sidelines. But they're not going to walk the door for me. They're not going to walk the thin line for me. This is my path. This is my situation that I have to get through. And as much as it's great that you have support, you've got to do it on your own. You've got to do the healing. You've got to do the time on your own. However, ask them, pull the red flag, or ask them for help here and there. But I strongly encourage those who feel like they can't do it, that they have to get into that mindset to say, I can do it. I will do it. And I've done it. So if anyone's having a problem, come talk to me. I'm happy to help.
I love that. And I want to throw something in there too,
Yeah.
that I found extremely helpful is those, like we have these memories, right? And like you said, you can hold them in your mind and get rid of all the like memorabilia around you. But one of the things about memories sometimes is that you'll have a flashback when you go to a certain place, like maybe you had a
Right.
favorite restaurant together
Hmm.
or a favorite place to go shopping or whatever.
Yes.
And I will suggest that after you give it some time, whatever that looks like for you, 4, 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever, find supportive people who love you, like friends, family, not your therapist, but friends and family, right? And revisit those places and make new memories.
Absolutely.
Because for me, that was one of the things that I really had to do. So a lot of arguments went down in Walmart, and I avoided Walmart for years. I still, well, I'm not a fan of Walmart. I'd rather go to Target, but I didn't go to Walmart for years. And so finally, I took my friends and I was like, you know, we're going to go to Walmart. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, because, you know, we would walk down an aisle and instead of being triggered, because I was like, oh, yep, we had the argument right there where whatever, we argued more later on. It was reassuring and it was
Yes.
supportive so that it was like, okay, now I can make this new memory
Hmm.
about with people that I love, and it replaces the old memory that was negative. Or it might replace a memory that was great at the time, and looking back on it, you're so broken because it's like, oh, how could I have? One of the things we think about, how could I be so stupid that I didn't see
Right.
it?
Yeah, and I love that because from experience, I remember that I went to the same spot that I went to on our first date, and I went there on a date with someone else, and this was like probably a month or two after, and it backfired, emotionally backfired. But I can tell you truthfully and thankfully, like if I went there like right now by myself, I would have no issues
Yeah,
because I replaced those memories, like you said, with new ones.
yeah. And I think that's again, most people don't even talk about is the tricks that our minds play on us, right?
Yes.
We will create this fantasy of a memory of, oh my God, it was the best, when you have to look at from a lens of reality of, wait a minute, I was in love with the potential of this person, not the actual reality of this person.
Yes.
Because, you know, for me, it was like, well, when the good times were good, it was great. But when the bad times were bad, they were horrific. Right. And so it
Yeah.
was like, oh, the good times would make it okay that the bad times were horrific. And it's like,
Right.
okay, well, look at the reality. The reality is he's emotionally unavailable. He's an alcoholic. He's this, he's that, he's the other. And oftentimes we don't think about that. Our minds will play tricks on it and be like, oh, but remember when we did that? And it was so great. It's like, so make sure you're really focusing on was it great? Or was that just my perspective of it because I wanted it to be great?
Yeah. Did you write anything down when you were going through that situation?
Oh, yeah. I have journals. I have
Journals? Yeah.
years of
Yeah.
journals. Yeah. Yeah. And what's funny, or not funny, that's the wrong word, is
I
that
get you.
he he saw some of the journals, and I never said his name, but he would rip them up and throw them away and make sure that he's like, I don't want anyone reading this.
It's not for him to read, you
I know,
know?
but he would find them and he would rip them up because, you know, he was so guilty. He was so guilty in so many areas of life, but he was so guilty and he didn't ever want anyone to find out. And they did.
Do you still remember which pages he ripped out?
Oh, it was like a whole entire notebook.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It wasn't just pages, it was a whole notebook. And that's okay. It was years that doesn't matter. I don't need those memories back. I have,
Yeah, right.
yeah. I don't need the actual words I was going through.
Yeah. I definitely did the pros and cons, which I think everyone should do, is I have to say the cons were outweighing the pros. So I did myself a favor of agreeing, yeah, this was meant to be.
You
And I
know,
think,
good for you.
yeah, and I think people need to do that.
You know, I do something or did something different rather than pros and cons of the person. I
Yeah.
did something of what am I gaining if I leave and what am I losing if I stay?
Right.
And most of everything that what I would be losing would be me. I would be losing me because I had already lost me.
Right.
And you know, in my circumstance, I was just waiting for him to kill me. I'm waiting to die.
Man, I don't even know what to say. I, I'm glad he didn't, though. I'm glad he
Me
didn't.
too. Me too. Me too. And you'll have to check out Shervin's podcast. It's a great segue because when
Oh,
I was on your show, I shared my story and you said the same thing. I don't even know what to say. I'm Shay. I'm speechless.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I haven't been through that situation. I mean, I've been through a situation, but not that type. But it's just, I wish I was there to help. I really do.
Mm, thank you. You know, I wouldn't have been able to receive help. I was so independent that I didn't know how to receive help. So when I started seeing a counselor right away, because he was in a car accident, so I was able to see a counselor right away. And that was the first time I was able to say, after that first session, that I was able to say I was abused. Up until then, I could never say that out loud. And I couldn't even really say it then. I was kind of whispering it and, you know, kind of still shamed, had so much shame tied to it. And yeah, now it's like, again, it's a movie I watched once, and I'm not making it light or anything like that, but oftentimes we don't even realize how much we're we're conniving ourselves by lying to ourselves of the experience that we've gone through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny too about the conniving, because now you see that in dating now, is that
Yeah.
you see that a lot, especially in online dating, is people are not only conniving others, but conniving themselves as well. And you're right back to to plan A's where what are you really looking for? And I feel like when people ask that question, the ones who ask the question, they have no idea what they even want themselves. They're just
Mhm.
actually calling out the bluff to see what that person is looking for and agree whether or not that they're looking for the same thing. So,
So since you brought it up, we'll talk about it. So online dating.
yeah,
Yeah.
good times.
Great time.
Great times.
Oy, we could probably have a whole entire show with just swapping stories back and forth just from that.
Yeah. And I'm
Um,
not saying that online, a lot of people have a lot of bad moments. A lot of people do, but there's a lot of great success. I've heard a lot of success
oh yeah.
stories,
Oh yeah.
but I hear more of the downfalls than the success, and that outweighs it. So, especially now, things are not looking on the bright side for online dating.
Well, you know, I met some really great people that weren't right for me,
For sure.
you know,
Absolutely.
and I can say that honestly. And either I met some really like horrible people that I'm like, what is this? What is this? What why did this even take place? And there's so many people that lie. I mean, just
Yeah.
recently had someone who come to find out he was married. It's like you take away my choice. Like, why can't you just be honest? 'Cause you took away my choice. My choice was to learn that you were single, right? And now to find out that you're actually married. It's like I didn't even have an informed choice on this.
But what do you think that is, though? Why do you think it is that people feel it's necessary for them to lie in that space when people are actually trying to find the ultimate truth?
Well, so one, I think it all stems from conniving to themselves, right? They're lying to
Right.
themselves about who they really are. There's a whole diagnosis with a word attached to it now called narcissism, right?
Yes.
And I'm not saying that was the case because, of course, that's a word that's thrown around a lot. But I believe there are people who want to believe their own lies. And maybe that's their fantasy that they want to live in. And rather than being honest and saying, hey, this is what's really going on, they just want to believe the fantasy of everything's okay and I'm going to be this person. And it sounded like now that I look back on it, I'm like, and find out exactly all that went on, I'm thinking he's probably done this hundreds of times. And it's sad because he's hurting his wife, he's hurting his children, you know, all the things, all the people he's
Yeah.
hurting, and all the people that he's met.
Right.
Yeah.
And most importantly is that he actually put himself last. Right. When you think about it, he's putting or she's putting their respect, their own personal respect last. Right. Because they're not thinking about what harm they're doing to themselves because it just doesn't matter to them anymore. And I think that's
Yeah.
just wrong. and they lose that self-respect.
And maybe it's a game. I don't know. Maybe,
Yeah,
I'd
yes,
hate to think that he was that shady, but who knows? People are.
yeah. I can tell you that I don't have that gene, thank goodness.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah, and in fact, I have this face that if I'm not feeling it, it just kind of goes there.
Yeah.
My face will let you know.
Let me ask you, you brought up a good point, if you don't mind me asking. If you're on a date with a guy and you brought up this face midway through the drink, are you bouncing out?
Uh, I no, I don't bounce out, and not because it's like, oh, you're lying to them and you're really not interested. No, no. I give myself the space to not make a quick judgment in
Hmm.
that arena. So
Yeah.
I really like to make sure that I have a conversation on the phone before we even meet in person.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's like, well, we don't ever do it anymore, right? We barely talk on the phone anymore, but it's intimate to hear someone's voice now rather than
Absolutely.
always texting. So it's like, okay, it kind of gives me a little bit of a feel. Is the conversation good? Is it a two-way street? Full circle. Are they asking me questions? Am I asking them questions? Or are they doing all the talking? Am I doing all the talking? That type of thing. And there have been times I had someone who said, I said hello. And then 30 minutes in, they ask me a question. And then as I'm talking, giving the answer halfway in, they start talking again because, right, they're nervous or whatever. They're
Sure.
doing their thing. That's who they are. And then afterwards, he sends me a text and was like, well, I think we should still go to dinner. An hour goes by. I hadn't answered because I was in a meeting.
Yeah.
And he texted me right back, like, how dare you? And this and that. And you live in a trailer park and all the negative insults. Here they come flying at me. And I was like, wow, thank you for showing me who you are. Peace out. And that's literally my response.
Yeah.
Thank you for
As it
showing me
should.
who you are, because that's what you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
I haven't. No, I have not. However, I have actually, and I'll be truthful. I went on a date with this girl and we were in Laguna Beach. And when we met at the beach, I was going to say I was not really happy with the outcome. The pictures looked
Uh,
like they were 15 years ago, way
yeah.
different. So I was a little upset with that. I felt like I got blindsided. And here I am with someone who, unfortunately, the attraction was not there.
Yeah.
And here she is just laying it on me, trying to feel as if we are a couple. And we just literally met
Right.
5 minutes ago. So I had to think of a plan because I did not want to be in that situation. I didn't want to have a drink with someone who I was not happy with sharing a drink with, sharing my time with, because I felt like it was a hoax.
Yeah.
So what I did was I took her to the beach. We watched the sunset. We talked for a little bit. Just wanted to get to know her. There was no chemistry at all. I did not try to hold her hand or kiss her or anything like that. I made it very clear. And I just told her, I said, I'm sorry. I just don't feel it. I just don't feel it. And I wish you nothing but the best, but I just don't have an attraction. And she said, okay, that's fine. And she sent me a text and was understanding, but she was also disappointed. And I rather that, and I think this goes for everyone else, is you rather that people are disappointed than fed up, if that makes sense.
Yes. And
Right?
heartbroken. I mean, let's be disappointed in the beginning rather than heartbroken 2.5 years later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she wasn't fed up with the fact of dating, so I'm sure she's still gone on dates, but she was just disappointed with our situation. But I'm hoping that this goes for her and everyone else is that you you can't post those pictures.
Mm.
You've got to be serious with yourself. Be serious with the profile,
Right.
right? Because you're putting your best foot forward on this profile. So you're laying it on the line here. And there's no room for error. There's absolutely zero room for error on these profiles.
Right.
So when you meet someone face to face, don't be surprised if this happens again.
Very true. Well, clearly, Shervin, we could talk for
We
days and hours because we've already have. But I just have a few more questions before we
Sure.
go. What do you want to be remembered for? What would be your legacy?
I want to be remembered for being a guy who has helped change the relationship world. I don't want to be wealthy. My brother is more of a money-driven guy. I am more of a relationship and love-driven person. I would love to go one day to an airport, right? And happen to bump into someone and says, "Excuse me, are you the host of Hidden Innuendos? Did you write that book? Are you the guy who went through that shit and exposed everything? Are you Shervin?" That's my wealth.
Mm-hmm.
For him to come up to me or her to come up to me and say, "You changed my life. Thank you." That's what I want to be remembered for, is me trying to serve a purpose on this planet, not only as a dad, but as a host who really genuinely has a care and love for people. I built this podcast for people to come and know that you are taken care of. You're not alone. I want you to tell me what's going on. Tell the world what's going on. See what we can do to help. And like I said, most importantly, you're not alone. I'm gonna fix you. I'm gonna help you any way I can. So that's what I want to be remembered for.
Love it. And you are already living out your legacy.
Living it.
Yeah. How can people connect with you? What's your social media? Facebook,
social media,
internet website, all the things.
I know if you asked me like 3 years ago, I'm like, fuck that stuff. Facebook, Instagram, Hidden Innuendos Podcast. And then the website is just Hidden Innuendos.
Which is surprising that's not already taken by something else.
Well, yeah. No, right.
Just saying.
I know. But yeah, you can reach to me on Hidden Innuendos Podcast on IG and Twitter and TikTok. I know it's kind of weird saying that, TikTok too.
Great. Before you go, I always like to end with this question of what phrase, scripture, or mantra are you living by right now?
My mantra is to soothe, groove, and move. So soothe your heartbreak, groove you into dating, move you back into love. That's what that means.
I love that. I love that. I had no idea there was a whole mantra behind it. That's beautiful.
There's a mantra, and then the colors, of course, there is significant meaning to it. So
yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Shervin, so much for being here. This has just been so much fun.
Thank you, Shā. I love it. Amazing.
Stay tuned. There is more to come on the Shā Sparks Show. This is the Don't Be a Dick segment. And as you know, DICK is an acronym that stands for dishonorable, inconsiderate, conniving, and know-it-all. On today's show, we were speaking with Shervin about his podcast called Hidden Innuendos and why he started that podcast. And he talked about how he had been with someone for 2.5 years, and all of a sudden, the last 3 months that they were together, she had been trying to be mean to him so that he would break up with her instead of her taking ownership of her feelings and breaking up with him. Now, you might be going, yeah, she was definitely a dick, but let me break this down to you a little bit more, and I'll give you another example. Just worked with another client this week, coaching client, and they were talking about how they weren't okay. So here they are, they're putting on a facade to everyone around them, especially their family, that she was fine, that she was just going through the motions and everything was all right, that she was fine. She was okay. And she says to me, first of all, she said, "I'm not okay." I said, "I know you're not okay, but does anyone that can do something about it and support you and love on you, do they know that you're not okay?" And she's like, "Absolutely not. I could never tell them." And I said, "Got it. So the one person that lives in your house besides you, that's the other adult, you're unwilling to tell that you're not okay?" And she said, "Well, my husband, I mean, what's he going to say? He's going to expect that I'm okay." I said, "Is he though?" Unfortunately, she had had multiple miscarriages in a short period of time. And anytime that you experience loss, whatever that looks like, whether it's a miscarriage or a job, a relationship, or, loss of a loved one in a death, anytime there's a loss, sometimes it's even, loss of a pet. There is going to be a point where we're not okay and grief takes over. And if we don't allow ourselves to grieve, then we're doing a disservice. We're being dishonorable to ourselves. But that's not the main point here. The main point is just like the person that Shervin was dating. She was conniving herself into believing that, maybe things would be okay. And my client was conniving herself in saying, well, my husband doesn't need to know that I'm not okay. And I said, he's the exact person who needs to know that you're not okay, because he's the only person that can support you. And so I said to her, do you want to be known as a liar? And she's like, no, absolutely not. And I know that about her, that her being called a liar is triggering for her. So she absolutely hated it that I even mentioned it. And I said, well, when you connive yourself, when you lie to yourself, you're really lying to others. So you're a liar. So think about that for a minute. Where are you lying to yourself? Maybe it's about how you really feel about a relationship that you're in, like our guest today on the show. Could be that you're lying to yourself about what you're going through, that you're not okay, and that you actually need support. You actually need some help. Or maybe you're lying to yourself that you're not actually happy. Maybe you're not happy in your job. Maybe you're not happy with whatever is going on, and you are putting on a facade. You're putting on a happy face. You're just going through the motions of, oh, it'll be all right. It'll be okay. It'll work out. And yet you've done that time and time again. And it's like you're running on a hamster wheel day in and day out, and nothing is getting better. I want to hear from you. I want to know. I am here to help you. And if I cannot help you, I know someone who can. I am connected to so many people that maybe I'm not the right person to work with, or maybe I just need to connect you to someone else. But so many times we will lie to ourselves because we're afraid to actually speak the truth, because we're afraid of looking bad. We're afraid of looking stupid. We're afraid of not having it all together. We're afraid of not looking perfect. We're afraid of saying, hey, I'm not okay, and I don't know what to do about it. Could you help me? So where's that fear showing up for you? And maybe it's not. Maybe you're good. That's great. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And if it is something that you're challenged with, let me know. We would love to hear from you. If you go over to the ShāSparksShow.com, you can leave us a message. You can leave us a voicemail. And if you give us our permission, we will play it on the show next time. But I want to hear from you. How can I support you? What can I do to encourage you to reach out to the people that is you're most closest to in your life, so that they can support you just by when you tell the truth? Because in my client's situation, here she is lying to her husband, and yet maybe what he needs from her is to tell the truth. So it gives him permission to tell the truth that he's not okay about the miscarriages either. Hope you enjoyed today's episode and our Don't Be a Dick segment. Like I said, if you feel free to share what you got out of today's episode, I would love to hear about it at ShāSparksShow.com. Don't forget to share this one person that they might benefit from listening to today's show. And if you want to, feel free to go over to your favorite podcasting app and give us a review. I would love to read that from you as well. And just know that you are not alone in anything that you're going through. We're all in this, living this world at this moment, at this time, living in humanity together. So until next time, let's get fired up.